We're going to talk to Nigel Burton, who does a great job at the Pac-12 network as an analyst. Coach N. Burton on Twitter, of course, a Washington safety back in the day. We welcome in Nigel. And why don't we start there, Coach, with Washington. The number right now at Oregon State is Oregon State lane 2. Washington has been dancing on that razor's edge. Oregon, Arizona State, Stanford, USC, Utah, Nigel. Close wins, but they keep winning undefeated.
Yeah, that's how seasons go. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last team in a competitive conference, in a good conference. Not like, well, let's be honest, most of the conferences out there where you have two powerhouses or one, and then everybody else can't put together a sentence or get a first down. That's what happens in the Pac-12. I mean, you go to even the dominant USC teams of Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lindell White. I mean, they had some blowouts, but they had plenty of close calls as well. Matter of fact, I was part of the coaching staff at Oregon State when Reggie Bush, I think, was a sophomore, and they beat us in a fog bowl. We could barely see. They beat us by a touchdown in Corvallis. So, I mean, it's kind of just how it goes. When you have a special season, there's usually these kind of moments where, your grit gets tested, and these guys have been tested and found ways to pass.
Nigel, you played at UW. Tell people how difficult it is in that 4 teams up there in the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Washington State, Oregon State, and Oregon, how tough it is to go on the road in each individual arena and to be able to get a win. We see the Huskies are a road dog now, top 5 team in the country, undefeated with a Heisman candidate, and they are a 2-point underdog against Oregon State and Jonathan Smith, who've done a tremendous job, losing only 2 games by 6 points.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a different animal. I hear, and I've been a part of all kinds of rivalries, right? When, obviously as a player and then as a coach, as part of UNLV, University of Nevada. I've been to the Territorial Cup at Arizona State. I grew up in Northern California with, Stanford, Cal, UCLA, USC. There is nothing. The only thing I can think of that comes close to those 4 schools going at each other's throats, maybe the BYU-Utah series, and that's got like religion involved. That's a whole other ball of wax there. But outside of that, Michigan, Ohio State, maybe Auburn, Alabama, and I'm saying maybe. I mean, there is a full-blown blood feud between these 2 bordering states and the 4 schools. And, what's happened with the Pac-12 has not helped, as 2 schools are leaving and 2 schools are remaining. And so it's extremely tough. And the schools know you better than anybody else. A lot of the kids, played against each other, whether, grew up with each other, things like that. And so families are split. And so whether you're talking Oregon, Oregon State, Oregon, Washington, Washington State, or this weekend, Washington, Oregon State, it is a personal deal. And, more importantly, I think as a lot of this stuff is, I think the reason that Washington's probably a road dog is because the things that are the Achilles heels of the Huskies are the things that Oregon State does really, really well, right? I mean, there have been times when Washington has struggled to stop the run game, and that's what the Beavers do really well with Damian Martinez and Sean Fenwick, on the outside, they have a great play-action pass game, and DJ Uiagalelei, who can get the ball out to a bunch of – I mean, they got a 4x1 track team out there in terms of their wide receivers. And then, you look at defensively, they've been really solid. There have been 2 hiccups on the road when you look at the Beavers at Washington State and at Arizona. Outside of that, they've been pretty dominant defensively. And being that they're playing at home, I get it. I understand why Washington would be the road dogs.
Coach Nigel Burton joining us, Pac-12 Network analyst, talking about the Pac-12 and the strength of the Pac-12, Coach. And don't sleep on Arizona State now. Look, Oregon coming off, that's a lot of emotion against USC. They traveled to Arizona State. All of a sudden, this is an Arizona State team you can't look past. It may surprise you that Oregon's laying 23.5 on the road, but give me your thoughts on this Oregon-Arizona State matchup.
If they beat Arizona State by 23 and a half, then Dan Lanning has figured out what no coach of any Northwest program has figured out in the last 20 to 30 years. I mean, whatever reason, those four schools, and I'm not even kidding. All right, you giggle. Look at the bodies, all right, under the desert when there were those four Northwest schools and what happens, right? I mean, you look at just this year, Oregon State goes down to Arizona, loses. Washington goes down to Arizona, almost loses. You've got what happened, obviously Arizona went to Washington State and took them behind the woodshed. You've got Oregon go back a few years, Justin Herbert, another team that looks like they have a CFP aspirations. They go to Arizona State team, should be outgunned, and they come away with a loss. When I was at Oregon State coaching, Oregon State had not won at Arizona State for 19 years when I was there. And I think they've only won like twice in the last 25 years. So I don't know what it is. It was the same when I was a player back in the 90s. We'd go down to Arizona State, and we'd come across with a loss, or we'd pull some miracle 4th and 17 win, and we're not even figuring out how the heck it happened. So that's just how it goes. If they win by 23, Dan Lanning has got the secret sauce that needs to be replicated by the other three schools, because it just does not go that way when those schools go down there.
That's a great point you bring up there, Coach. In 2015, Oregon goes down there, scores 61 points. They only win by 6 points. So this is a series that's always been explosive and competitive down in the desert. There's speculation right now, Coach, that Chip Kelly's going to be out at UCLA. They've got a reasonable buyout considering the amount of buyouts we see in today's college football market. Who is somebody, in your estimation, that could be a potential head coach for the Bruins who have not been quite as good as you would have expected with Rick Neuheisel, Jim Mora Jr., and now Chip Kelly the last couple of 10 to 15 years?
Honestly, man, I couldn't even begin to tell you. I think UCLA, and roll through those names again. Rick Neuheisel,
yep,
right, who, took Washington to a Rose Bowl. Chip Kelly, who really took Oregon from a well-respected national program to a powerhouse, and went to the NFL and got fired after winning 20 games, which is insanity to me, and things, and then goes to UCLA. And then Jim Mora Jr., who, has had his moments, and I think he's even had some moments of success even at UConn. I think UCLA has got a UCLA problem that they have to fix way before they have a football coach issue. They've got some things that they need to address, because UCLA hasn't been the UCLA that I grew up with, that I loved, that was playing for not just Rose Bowls, but national championships with, Terry Donahue and even Bob Solito. They haven't been that for 25 years. I don't think you can lay that at the feet of the head football coach and say this is all your fault, when you've tried 3 different times with guys who've been successful at other places, and it hasn't come through the way that you thought it would. So, I think that Chip's a great football coach. I've coached against him, and he is a nightmare to prepare for. And I think you look at this team, they've been beat up. They've had to cycle through multiple quarterbacks because of injury and things like that. And if you've got a team that can win consistently with their third-string quarterback, then, the head coach's name is probably Kyle Whittingham. And outside of that, I don't know who he is. I hope that they decide to keep him, and if they decide to go in a different direction, I just go, then who? Because you've tried so many guys. I think you might want to start looking at some other things within the program that are holding some guys that are really good ball coaches back.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.